Hi everyone, Emily here from Emily Reads, and today I have for you my December wrap up and just a brief little overview of my year, some brief stats for my year, and then some 2024 goals. So, in the month of December, I read 8 books for 3,407 pages, which I think that's really funny because that's pages more than I read in November, but 2 books less than I read in November because a couple of the books were big chonkers. The average rating was 4.5 stars. One was a reread, and I finished 2 series. So the first book I read, sorry, I'm looking away. I have my laptop here with my spreadsheet. So that's what I was doing there. So the first book I read is Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. And this is the prequel to Legends and Lattes. So I think pretty much most people know what this is. Sorry, I'm trying to find where I rated it. And I gave this a 3.5 stars. I did enjoy learning more about Viv's backstory, but what made Legends and Lattes for me was all the supporting cast of characters. Like, I really enjoyed the supporting cast of characters, especially Thimble. I loved Thimble. Like, I would love a stuffed animal of Thimble. I would love to have Thimble's cinnamon rolls and scones and all the, I could just see like a cookbook made from Thimble's recipes. So that's one thing that I just really loved about Legends and Lattes. And while I enjoyed the characters in here, I didn't feel like they were as strong and as memorable as the characters in Legends and Lattes. It was still an enjoyable read. Would I read more in this world? Absolutely. And the ending of the book, how it was written, kind of leads me to believe that there might be more, or there's room for more. The next book I read, I'm actually kind of hold and talk a little bit later because I read a whole trilogy in December. But I also read, and I don't have a copy of this to show, but I read The Matzo Ball by Jean Meltzer. And this book is our main female character. It's a romance centered around a ball for Hanukkah. And and I'm terrible with remembering names. I'm sorry. It just is how I am. Our main female character, she is the daughter of a rabbi, very Orthodox, and she loves Christmas, and she keeps that love of Christmas kind of hidden from her family because of the implications of what that might be for her parents being such prominent leaders in the Jewish community. And she also writes Christmas-themed romance novel. Think Hallmark movies, okay? And she also battles chronic fatigue syndrome. And I confess that I forget the correct medical terminology that I know that the author and the character in the book prefer, so I apologize for not using that. But she has chronic fatigue syndrome, and she has to navigate her life with that. And her publishers want her to write Hanukkah-themed a Hanukkah-themed novel. And so she is trying to get inspiration and is trying to get an invitation to this matzah ball that our main male protagonist is throwing. Like, that's his job. He runs and throws big events. And he's really trying to make it work, especially since no one has really ever done a Hanukkah-themed holiday event. And our protagonists have a backstory in that they knew each other when they were 12 years old at a Jewish summer camp. The problem that I had with this book, like I really enjoyed the fact that one, we had representation for people with chronic fatigue syndrome. I appreciated that it was something different. It was not Christmas themed. I appreciated the Hanukkah theme. One thing that I did not appreciate is just how much they held on to some hurts like that happened 18 years prior when they were 12. And that's why I knocked the rating down. I thought that was kind of odd. Like, you're 12 years old. It happened 18 years ago. Why are we still so hanging on to this? I don't understand. The next book I read was Keeper of the Lost Cities, which is by Shannon Messenger, which is book 2. Keeper of the Lost Cities Exile by Shannon Messenger, which is book 2 in the Keeper of the Lost Cities series. I did enjoy this. One thing that I had a hard time with this book is it does not, like most books in a series will kind of give you a brief little refresher. Like if they introduce a character, they might give like a sentence or two that kind of reminds you their importance in the story. And this book did not have that. And so there are a couple of key events that I struggled to remember from book 1 when I read it. And I read book 1 back in March, during middle grade March. So that's something that I struggled with. Another thing, just pacing wise, I felt the first 100 pages really could have been kind of condensed down. I didn't feel like we got very far in 100 pages, but I did enjoy this. I still want to continue to read in the series. I think it's a nice, lighter read. It is long, but it is still lighter and enjoyable. And I gave this, how much did I give this? 4 stars. Next, I read Jade Legacy by Fonda Lee. I gave this 5 stars. This is book 3 of the Greenbone Saga. It is the last book of the trilogy. And what a ride. Not gonna lie, I kept thinking like, oh man, everyone's gonna die, everyone's gonna die, everyone's gonna die. I just had a feeling that everyone's gonna be wiped out. And I don't feel like that's a spoiler to say that, because that was just what I thought. I'm not gonna tell you if that happens or not. But I will say this. At the start of this book, there's a character that when I first met them in Jade City, I was like, I don't like them, don't like them. And then I started to love them and just love them even more and more and more through Jade City and Jade War. And then at the start of this book, I hated them. It's like, what are you doing? I hated what they were doing and some of the things that they were doing. And then by the end of the book, loved them again. And that is why I loved this series. I love Fonda Lee's character work. Like, I am not a fan of mafia books. I'm not a fan of kung fu movies or mafia movies, or martial arts, I should say. But I loved Greenbone Saga because of her character work. She draws such compelling characters, such real characters that they're not perfect. They make decisions. They make decisions that they try best on logic and to make the best decisions, but there are very real implications and very real consequences of those decisions that they have to live with. And that's what I appreciated about this series. I'm so thankful for the ending for one character whom I just hated, and you just hate throughout the entire trilogy, and how she handled the ending for that character. I was like, oh, yes, I can live with that ending. But if you have not read Greenbone Saga, I do thoroughly recommend it. This is something that I do want to go back to and read again. I'm looking forward to reading her novella and her collection of short stories centered in this world. I'm kind of sad that we're not going to get any more after that. I would love to see an alternate like history in that. Like, I would love to see things from Ayat Mada's point of view. I think that would be fascinating, because she's just such a very compelling character. But Jade Legacy. All right, and then I read Bear and the Nightingale, which was a reread. I listened to it on audio. The Girl in the Tower. and Winter of the Witch by Catherine Arden. So I'm going to kind of talk about it. I will say this. So I really enjoyed the audiobook. I was very impressed with the narrator trying to pronounce all those Russian names, do Russian accents. And again, I love the themes of what is a woman's place, especially in medieval Russia. What choices do they have? Women's agency, or lack thereof, I should say. Given this time period, I also love the themes of Russian tradition and folklore and religion, and what happens when Christianity is brought in, and that tension. The Girl in the Tower, I feel like really continues and carries on those themes that are developed in book one even more, and raises the stakes on those themes even greater. And this is actually my favorite book of the trilogy, and probably my favorite book of the year. I would say maybe it ties. I would say, I don't know, but like seriously, just so good. And then Winter of the Witch, that was a book falling, if you heard that. Winter of the Witch, I really did enjoy. I do feel like if you're going to read the trilogy, pick up Winter of the Witch up right after you finish Girl in the Tower, because the action immediately picks up after the ending of book two. So it just helps with continuity. This one, I think I gave a 4.5, simply because I felt like there were some pacing issues in here, and some of the places where we went, I was kind of like, eh. And again, those places were where the pacing struggled for me. Holy cow. I don't know how to talk about this without spoilers. I thought it was fascinating where Vasya goes and what she does and the decisions that she starts to make, and the implications of those decisions. And I was actually very surprised by the ending, because I thought something was going to happen to her based on something that was said in book one, and that didn't happen. So I was very pleasantly surprised in this book. And then lastly, I read With Love from Cold World by Alicia Thompson. First, I need to talk about this cover. Like, I love the old school, like, vibes on this cover. Here's what I don't love. So, Barnes & Nobles, when they have an exclusive edition, their stickers are impossible to get off, and I accidentally ripped off part of the cover. So, I gave this book 3.5 stars. So what this is about is Lauren is a bookkeeper at Cold World, which is like a winter theme park set in Florida. And she is along with Asia, who also works there, or Asa, I don't know how to pronounce his name. They are tasked with coming up with new and fresh ideas to help Cold World. It's been open for a while, and it's struggling financially. So they're tasked with coming up with ideas to help rejuvenate and revitalize the theme park. And they have the option of working together or not. And they're just kind of, I wouldn't say they're enemies, because they don't hate each other, but they definitely don't get along. And so that's kind of the premise of the book. There are some trigger warnings at the front of the book. There was one trigger warning that I was just kind of like, huh? Like, we have to have a trigger warning for this? I don't understand. But, I don't know. Like, I don't know. So, that is what I read in December. Overall this year, and now I'm pulling up my spreadsheet on my computer, so I apologize. So overall, my goal was to read 70 books this year, and I read 118. So that's awesome. I will say this, I had a goal at one point to bring down the percent, or to have I wanted my owned read books physical, and my owned unread physical books to be the same, like the percentage. I want it to be 50-50. It's 38.17. So I've read 38.17% of the books that I own. So here's why that number is low, I think. One, I did get a lot of books this year. I spent too much money, number one. Number two, I did get a lot of free books. I will say that. And I've been selling on Pingo, which has been wonderful for me. But I also, if I read a book and I'm like, I'm not going to read this again, or I get rid of it quickly. So that I think is why my numbers are a little off. And I did read 45,221 pages. So that's awesome. I can't tell you how many books I acquired because I did not keep that number up to date. My goal for next year is actually, I'm lowering my goal for books that I want to read next year. I'm lowering it to 52. And here's why. One, I'm committed to working on that 52 book club challenge. And I have a lot of big chunky books for that challenge. I have 2 Stormlight Archive books. I have Doctor Strange and Mr. Norrell. I have The Count of Monte Cristo. Those are chunky books. And Stormlight Archive 5 comes out in December. So I've got some chunky books that I want to read. So I'm purposely keeping the number low on books because I know that my page count is going to offset things. At any rate, what did you read in December? What was your favorite book of the month or of the year? And what are your goals for 2024? As always, happy reading. And since I'm filming this on New Year's Eve, Happy New Year's.